Also, Jim Garrison, who's been involved with Ubiquity University, which is like a parallel to my Green University. He's been very much on the case of, plugging into the whatever wisdom these visitors might have for us as a planet. I think that's the route to take, because it would appear there are different types of visitors on this planet with slightly different agendas. Not all of them necessarily are beneficent. Not all of them mean well for humanity. Some think humanity's hopeless and just, here to be colonised and taken over. Others think, no, humanity's worth saving, we can work with, improve gradually, So there's lots of mysteries here to ask philosophically, and this series is a good place to start. On Netflix, if you can access it. When I lived in London, I got very interested in this stuff. Went out second-hand bookshops of London, bought loads of books on UFOs, everything that was going, talked to people, and I said, why don't we set up a UFO study centre? Why don't we study this academically? Because nobody was doing it. This is in the 80s. Gradually it's become slightly more sensible. One of the people who's interviewed in the Netflix series says he's got a theory about what UFOs are. He thinks they're us way in the future, after we've cracked the speed of light, after we have a planet at peace, after all that, coming back in time to give us inspiration and ideas. And this is a professor at a university in America he's a philosopher, I believe. It's a nice theory. I mean, if we've got our physics so together that we've cracked the speed of light, maybe we can do time travel as well. Maybe that's opened up. In which case, the craft are coming back from the future. So I think one can research this stuff. I mean, I think keep a level head. I've never really gone down the route of the French guy, Rael, who claimed to have been abducted and taken up into a UFO in the 70s in France and was given the mission and spread peace and light. But he's now living, I think, in Canada as a tax avoider at the end of his life. Was he telling the truth? I don't know. I'll leave it to others to investigate, but probably not sufficiently to convince everybody that he was telling the truth. But so I think suspend judgment, and then let's find out more about it. Really, I talked last time when we did this one about cosmism, which is another version of this, which is that the cosmos is alive, and that would fit with the researchers that are coming forward. I mean, one thing I would like is I would like to chair a interplanetary philosophy seminar before I die. I really would love to know what the periodic table is on different planets in other galaxies, whether they come up with the same sorts of religions, whether they all have a Buddha or a Christ or a Moses, or whether there's something entirely and completely different. That would be interesting to do interplanetary religious studies. Talking of which, by the way, a paper of mine is going to be published in a journal on teaching theology and religions about the periodic table. So that's coming out soon, which will get the idea out to more academics, but not on different world systems. That will come later. Voila. Yeah, go for it.
If I remember well, last week we spoke when we used the Tarot of Gods, maybe of one god with, in mythology.
We did Ganesh.
Yes.
And Krishna, I believe.
Yes, and one of them, maybe not that time, maybe once before. With Asclepius, or at least with the Book of Enoch, we have some mythology who is linked with cosmos.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
So even in the periodic table, if we dig, we could find some link with other guys.
Yeah, other intelligences, yes. Yes, and Enoch's a good example of a prophet, seer, who's taken up into the heaven worlds. And is it the case that these different prophets and teachers have been able to access divine, intelligence? Socrates was in touch with a spiritual being he called his daimon.
Ah.
Where does that come from? I like the Nine Muses. I follow Plato and being a devotee of the Nine Muses. When they're not busy here, are they on other planet systems? I don't know. Or are there 8 muses or 10 in other worlds? How would their mathematical systems be? Would it be the same fundamental core mathematics in different world systems? These are all interesting questions that I think Intergalactic Philosophy Club can have. That's why I've renamed this the Cosmic Philosophy Club. I want to have these discussions with people. So, if you've got views on that, send in a note. Right, let's do our final thing now, our duty to consult the gods. Because ultimately we're just, they're devotees in all their variety. And I love the whole fecundity of the gods, and that's a reflection of our diversity as humanity. The reason we have gods plural is because there are so many humans, 8 billion or something, and so many rich histories and cultures and languages. The other thing I've been working on this week is finishing my 99 Names of Peace. I concluded the last chapter yesterday, and now I've got a month to spell check the whole thing, and it'll be published for Christmas. It's been a marathon, and the last language I did was Dogon, or Dogon, which is from Mali, African. And that was about this issue of cosmic intelligence, and because the Dogon tribe of Mali said they were descendants from a planet round the small star at Sirius, not the one you can see with the naked eye, but there's another one. And the question is, of course, how could they know that? This was revealed to anthropologists in the 1930s, and Robert Temple wrote up a book about it called The Sirius Mystery. So that's the language. I looked at Dogon language, it's fascinating. And then that's the project, is to research all this. So anyway, here, you choose first.
Ah.
Okay. Now, good, that's the first one. Right, let's try this one. Oh. Ah. Okay. Well, we've got Hercules. Gosh. Yeah, doing his 12 labours. That's very appropriate. Because we need a Hercules, I think, to sort out the problems of the world. We'd say they're Herculean, the challenges we all face as humanity. Hercules was a very popular god in classical times. And when I was researching for the card, I discovered many exciting things about him. Now, he stands for strength. He's the major arcana card of strength, which in the traditional tarot has a kind of lion being tamed by a woman, if you recall, in the tarot decks. In the Tarot of the Gods, he's Hercules, which seems appropriate. And what I found very interesting, I was researching for my book on the Encyclopedia of the Celts, of the Druids, and the Celts of Gaul believed they were descendants of Hercules. When they got seriously discussing with the Romans who came and conquered them and they eventually, opened the wine and had long chats. The Celts said, well, okay, yeah, we're descended from Hercules. And that was agreed by everyone. Celtus was a son of Hercules in mythology, and he's the ancestor of the Celts. Because he had a huge job to do, Hercules was on a mission with his 12 labours, and he came through Gaul, and he went to the Pyrenees, and the mountain range is named after Pyrenees, who he fell in love with. So there's a lot of interesting research around Hercules in Gaul here. And I also discovered that Monaco, which is on the south coast of France, a little independent country, well, city-state, is named after Hercules. And because Hercules was a famous god for the Phoenicians as well, called Melkart. And he was famous all over the Mediterranean because the Phoenicians of Tyre were on the Mediterranean coast, north and south, and they loved Hercules too. And Monaco was a foundation of theirs, long time ago, dedicated to Hercules with its own temple and everything. And not many people realise that. So I think Hercules stands for the work we've got to do. It's a big job saving this planet. We can't, we can't stop because it's worth doing. I'm with the ones that say humanity's worth saving, because we do have these redeeming features like compassion, love, intelligence, kindness, beauty, magic. All these things are worth something, and this planet is a beautiful place for it. So let's clean up the planet, and that's a job for Hercules. And his name in the south of Gaul was Hercules Monachos, meaning Hercules the one and only. Hercules Monachos, and that's where Monaco comes from. They dropped the first bit, but so that's interesting. Yes, so I think he stands for effort, right effort, dedication, and we will get through this. And he is the son of Zeus after all, so he's got these divine qualities. Okay, the other one that we got is Uranus, the two of air, which is another fascinating card. The two of air is in volume 2.
The same name as the planet?
Yes, yeah. Yes. And also one of the muses' names, Urania, is from the same root, meaning the heavenly one. Uranos is the god of the heavens, really. Hence he's an air card. He's a sky god. And his female form is Urania, who's the muse of astronomy and science. And we have a room here in the museum dedicated to Urania. She's, in the office, so to speak. So Uranos is her father, consort. And when the Greeks named the 9 muses, they did so very deeply. It seems to go back to Orpheus, this tradition of the 9 muses, and the very earliest phase of Greek thinking in its mythical, magical form, but also rational as well. We know about Uranus from the poet Hesiod, Greek poet from about 700 BC, who wrote the Theogony, and he said Uranus mated with Gaia. Gaia's the earth mother, the goddess. So this is like the sky father mating with the earth mother. And that is quite a, if you haven't had that experience yet, of falling in love, the interplay between the Sky Father and the Earth Mother is great fun if you want to play that out. When Antony and Cleopatra had their wonderful love affair, they used to like doing role play, dressing up, and they would dress up as different gods and goddesses with costumes and stuff, drink some good wine, and then have a fun lovemaking session. And one of the ones they used to like to do was dressing up as the Sky Father and the Earth Mother. And in a sense, every couple is recapitulating that. Jungians would say, these gods are just projections of our own psyches. We are, our minds are generating these images and archetypes. A theological person would say it's the other way round. The gods are generating us. I stand on the fence here, and I think it's a bit of both. But I do know that when Uranus mated with Gaia, she gave birth to the 12 Titans, who were Oceanus, Coeus, Creus, Hyperion, Iapetus, Thea, Rhea, Themis, goddess of justice, and Mnemosyne, who is the mother of the 9 Muses. So they are part Titan, and Phoebe, Tethys, and Cronus. These are all Titans. That's quite a brood to have. If you imagine being the parents of that lot. Well, that's Uranus. He was the dad. You can imagine, like how difficult it was to keep that family in order. But I think the saving grace comes down through Mnemosyne and her daughters, the 9 Muses, because they became the emblems of knowledge and wisdom in Plato's school, which I follow. And I think the Titan, I mean, we can discuss, were the Titans was this primordial? Were they around when the Earth was still forming? Were Titans gods and goddesses in in an extraterrestrial sense? Were they pre-existing this planet? Well, I don't know, because Gaia, the Earth Mother's there. The sky mates with her, so maybe sky beings come to the Earth, mate with Gaia, and then produce these divine beings. That's a bit like the Book of Enoch, which says that the early ancestors of mankind were mated with by angels that descended onto Earth, led by Shem Jazza, and then produced these giants, they call them, in the Book of Enoch. If you read the Book of Enoch and listen to my commentary, you'll learn all that. And so maybe the Titans are the Greek equivalent of a similar myth. I don't know. Later, there was trouble, and there's another great poem Hesiod wrote called the Titanomachy by another poet called Eumelus of Corinth. And the conventional gods, the Olympian gods, and the Titans fell out. And there was a big fight between them, a war. And Zeus won that war on behalf of the Olympian gods. So this is interesting. There's a sort of war in heaven going on. Is it still going on? This is why it's interesting. I like listening to these UFO type people who say, yes, there are. I heard one guy talking about there are 5 different parts of the universe, and different types of aliens are coming to Earth from different regions, and they've been fighting for eons. Some are like, nice, friendly, cuddly types. Others are really horrible, kind of bully types who are more like robot, like Tyrannosaurus Rex on steroids with robot brains. I mean, how that got past the maker, I don't know really. But anyway, I'm interested in this ancient mythology, and it's a war of the Titans, but the redemption is through their own knowledge, their own wisdom, because through Mnemosyne, memory, the 9 daughters eventually give good knowledge to mankind. So we learn ethical wisdom through them. That was Plato's point. I mean, anybody can become a titan. You know, you can. Like, that's what we've got. We've got the Putin titans. We've got the, the fighters, the Hamas people learning to be skillful warriors, and the Israeli fighting back. This is just kid stuff. The challenge on this planet is to elevate our humaneness to the divine level and receive inspiration from the gods or the goddesses, in my opinion. And then we become ethical for the first time, because we realize we're just kids in a vast, vast universe. Mm-hmm. And we have to learn to behave, or we won't make the grade. We won't even be able to save this planet. It'll just, be zapped. So I think that's why we have to learn to be good. And that was Plato's point of setting up the academy, which is a very deep thing he did. Uranus has given his name to the planet Uranus, which was recently discovered. They didn't know about it until fairly recently. And astrologers can talk about that. Uranian people are those who have visionary ideas and are quite revolutionary. It's an interesting archetype. So I think, so we're at a Uranian turning point, aren't we, on the planet? Somehow we have to extract the wisdom from the granddaughters of Uranus, the 9 muses, of which Urania is one, and find enough wisdom to follow the light instead of the dark path. And if we fail, then we can just surrender and ask Hercules to do it for us, because he's everybody's favourite god. He'll turn up and fix it. Anyway, any questions? That's my reading of this.
No, thank you very much.
Is that okay? How do you see it?
I did not know there was a Uranian archetype.
Well, if you want more detail, you have to get the book and read it. But it's also about intergenerational transfer of power, the Uranus myth, because in his son Kronos succeeds him ultimately, and Uranus ends up being castrated by his own son in the myth, and from the genitals comes Aphrodite. Now, Freud, of course, and Freudians really get into this, and really what this story is about is how every son wants to castrate the father because they want their power, and that's what Freud pointed out, the Oedipus complex. So I go into all that and I call it the Uranus complex, which is, if you're a god, you're always watching your back because the next generation are coming over and they might castrate you. And this is about intergenerational conflict, which is very important. I mean, why did the Chinese eldership crush the Tiananmen Square people? They were kids in their eyes. These were 70, 80-year-old bureaucrats who'd been on the Long March, and some kids with a goddess statue in their 20s and late teens. So they just sent the tanks in. That's crushing the new generation, right? And that's what the oldies do all over the place. They've been doing it for centuries. I think enough is enough, and I think we should release peace between the generations. So James Fasey, who was a philosopher and Freemason in Switzerland, he pointed out that the worst conflicts in history are caused by intergenerational conflict, like the Uranus complex. And that if we're going to get peace on this planet, it has to be a contract between the generations, as well as everything else. And he was a visionary guy. He actually wrote the constitution, which Switzerland lives under now. The republic they have, which works, was James Fasey's baby. He was from Geneva, and he also promoted Geneva as a city of peace. A great man. And he was onto something. He said Marx was wrong. It's not about class struggle. It's about intergenerational struggle. So, okay, we need intergenerational peace. And that's why the UN, in its wisdom, in the compact it's just signed for the future, it had a big conference in September, and it's made a contract between the generations. So we oldies have got to clean up the planet so our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren can inherit, you know. And so there's a sort of moral contract between us, the oldies, and the new generations coming in. And that's the opposite of the Uranus conflict, which tries to suppress the youth. So that's another dimension to this card, I think, that I see in these cards. Anyway, read it if you're interested, because there's a lot of learning there. Yes, and then I do speculate on Christ's relationship with his father and the intergenerational stuff going on there. Was Christ the devotee of Uranos? He's always talking about the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of Uranos, which is actually the Greek word in the text of the New Testament. What did he mean by that? I have a wonderful book in my Christian section here on Christ as a visiting astronaut from, you know, a cosmically advanced civilization. Maybe we'd say space explorer. Yes, our Father which art in heaven, Uranon in Greek, hallowed be thy name, is the opening of the Lord's Prayer. So that adds an extra bit of complexity to our card. Yes. So it's interesting stuff. The element uranium was discovered in 1789, the Revolutionary year, by a German chemist, Martin Klaproth, and it was named uranium. I think we need to be careful with uranium. It's dangerous stuff, and this knowledge that I'm sharing can be dangerous as well. That's why I said about safeguarding knowledge. You have to work on your ethical, spiritual heart energy to cope with uranium, you know, and the powers of Uranus. But that's where the muses come in, and their guidance is very important. Okay, I think let's just have a good week, and may no one start chucking the uranium and plutonium around. Let's just keep it, you know, try and decommission all these weapons before somebody gets hurt. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Hello, Mishi.